My father handed over the family business to my lazy and irresponsible brother, even though I had been helping build it my whole life. Just a month later, my brother nearly killed a customer with a severe allergy due to his negligence. Now my father is desperately begging me to come back, fix everything, and save the business. I'm not sure where to start, but I guess with this, I'm 31, and I spent the last 6 years working side by side with my dad at our family restaurant. We're not a big chain, but this one location is the heart of everything. It's the original one my grandfather started, and I left my corporate job to help run it. I thought I knew where my future was headed. Turns out I didn't. I'll never forget the silence in that room. At my dad's retirement party, which I planned down to the last damn cupcake, he got up to make a speech. He thanked the staff, hugged my mom, smiled at me, and then casually said, "Thank you, Lauren, for all your help. But moving forward, Zach will be taking over as manager." It landed so flat I genuinely thought I misheard. But I didn't. Everyone heard, and no one clapped. A spoon dropped somewhere. Someone cleared their throat. People exchanged awkward glances. I stood at the bar with a glass of Prosecco and went completely numb. I'm 31. I've been working in that restaurant 6 days a week for 6 years. I built the systems, trained the staff, wrote the policies, worked late nights dealing with vendors and payroll and menus and licenses. I knew every scratch on the kitchen tiles. I was convinced I would take over once Dad stepped down. Instead, he handed the business to my younger brother. Zach is 26. He's been unemployed for almost 2 years, hopping from one temp job to another. Fired from most of them. He's arrogant, lazy, and clueless about how the restaurant even operates. Nobody in the family respects him, not even Mom. Dad kept talking about passing the torch to the next generation and giving Zach a chance to grow. I didn't hear most of it. I could barely breathe. I noticed some of the kitchen staff looking at me with quiet sympathy. Mom clapped politely. Zach looked smug. I walked outside. No idea where I was going. The air was warm and smelled like grilled basil and pastry dough. I ended up behind the restaurant, sitting on the concrete steps near the delivery entrance, staring at the pavement. It felt like someone had swapped my life with the strangers. Dad came out a few minutes later, sat beside me, asked what was wrong. I said, "Do you really think I'm going to work for Zach?" He shrugged, said I'd still be the one actually running things, while Zach would shadow me, learn, settle in, and that I was reliable. That's when something inside me cracked. He didn't even realize how deeply he'd just betrayed me. He genuinely thought this was fine. I told him I was done. I wouldn't work under someone who got fired 5 times in 2 years. That he picked the wrong person and he was about to lose the right one. He said nothing. I drove home. In my dress, hair falling out of its style, makeup smudged. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat in the dark and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Completely lost. I didn't make a scene. I didn't show up the next day and slam the door. I simply didn't go in. That evening, I texted the shift lead that I wouldn't be coming back. No explanation. No demands. I knew that if I said even one word, I'd break. And I didn't want to explain myself anymore. My dad didn't call. He just forwarded an email from the accountant about my final paycheck adjustment. "No, I'm sorry. No, can we talk?" Just numbers. I closed the message and deleted it. That's how he ended 6 years of partnership, with a spreadsheet. The rest of the family acted like nothing happened. My mom invited me over for dinner, just to catch up. I declined. My older brother Charlie sent a polite, "How are you?" and hang in there, but I knew he didn't want to get involved. He never did. And I started to feel like I had been erased from the family picture, like I'd never even worked at that restaurant. Zach started posting on the restaurant's Instagram, a photo of him with the caption, "Fresh leadership, fresh vision." I stared at the screen like it had slapped me. Not because he posted it, but because he genuinely believed it. Like he earned this. Like he was the business now. My years, my work, vanished. I tried to redirect myself, browsed job listings, updated my resume. I could go back to HR, do consulting. I had options, but every part of me resisted. Not because I couldn't, because I didn't want to. I didn't want to be the new hire somewhere. I had already become someone, and that someone had been taken from me in a single sentence from a stage. For the first 2 weeks, I barely left the house. I was just processing. I still woke up early. My body clung to routine. I brewed coffee, jotted down notes in a planner like I had meetings to prepare for. But there was nothing to do. One day I checked the restaurant's website. Just out of curiosity, They'd changed the menu. Two of my dishes were gone, my signature salad and the dessert I created from scratch. I hit refresh, thinking it was an error. They were really gone, replaced with something bland. I was gone. From the website, from the team page, from the kitchen, from the minds of the customers. Something in my chest folded in on itself. Not from anger, from emptiness. I'd never taken a sick day in 6 years. Showed up with fevers, migraines, after sleepless nights. That restaurant had been a second skin. And now I was just an ex-employee. I didn't call my dad. I didn't ask for clarity. That was beneath me. I was proud of my silence. But that silence burned. When my mom texted, "He didn't mean to hurt you," I didn't reply. Because that was the problem. He didn't think he had. During the third week of silence, I woke up one morning and didn't immediately think about the restaurant. It was small, but I noticed. I was moving forward. Not because I forgave, but because I wanted to feel like myself again. I tried not to follow what was happening at the restaurant. I really did. I blocked the Instagram page, muted the staff group chat, deleted every folder labeled work off my laptop. I needed distance. Emotional quarantine. I scrubbed everything that reminded me of that job like wiping soot after a fire. But then, on a quiet Sunday, Ashley texted me. She had been our hostess for the last 3 years. One of the few people I genuinely trusted. I didn't want to open it at first. But something in me flickered. I read it. "Lauren, I'm sorry you're not here. Everything's falling apart. Steve quit." I read it 3 times. Steve, the chef? My chef. The one who stood on the line with me the night the stove caught fire. He'd been there a year before I joined. We built the menu together, fought over spices. He was the backbone. Quit meant walked out. Voluntarily. Or worse. I didn't even have to ask. Her next message answered it. Zach told him to cut 5 items from the menu and change the lasagna sauce. Said it was too expensive and complicated. I closed the chat and sat down. It was predictable. I knew this would happen. Zach knows nothing about food service. To him, running a restaurant is just vibes and Instagram reels. He never stood in a kitchen soaked in sweat during a broken AC rush hour. Doesn't understand why we use that specific brand of tomatoes. To him, it's all Excel and cost reduction. I pictured it. Steve listening to a lecture from a kid who didn't know how to devein shrimp. And then, at some point, just taking off his apron and walking out. That's when I didn't feel anger, but grief. Like something broke again. Because I realized, even if I went back, that version of the place was already slipping away. The team, the energy, the pride. It was all starting to die. A few days later, one of our former baristas called. A customer had complained the cappuccino tasted wrong. Turns out the new barista didn't know how to steam almond milk. Zach had hired his friend, no experience. Said, he'll figure it out. The old staff started leaving. The new ones weren't a team. They were patches. No loyalty. No shared history. Just names on a payroll. At the grocery store, I bumped into our old produce supplier. He said they were now on prepay. Zach wasn't paying on time. 3 deliveries had already been delayed. The place was collapsing. Not in one explosion, but slowly, like a house rotting from the inside. And I wasn't just a bystander. I was the one who built that house. And now I was watching a kid with a sledgehammer tear it apart. I wanted to stop it. Every part of me did. But I wouldn't let myself even think about stepping back in. He made his choice. He pushed me aside and handed Zach the keys. Let him handle the wreckage. Still, it boiled in me. Because the restaurant was falling apart. And I still loved it. And then something happened. I didn't find out right away. My phone was on silent, and I missed a few calls. 2 from my mom, 1 from Charlie. There was also a short message from my dad. Call me. It's urgent. I called him back. His voice wasn't just tense, it was shaken. And I immediately knew something serious had happened. This wasn't just a bad delivery or a scheduling issue. This was bigger. A customer ended up in the hospital. Severe allergic reaction. From dessert, he said. I went still. He continued talking quickly, almost stumbling over his words like even he couldn't believe what he was saying. Zach had instructed the kitchen to use regular milk instead of soy. Said the vegan supplies were too expensive, and that if the guest didn't specifically ask, it didn't matter. The woman had ordered our signature vegan dessert, the one we always made with plant-based milk by default. We even had a dedicated prep area for it, to avoid cross-contact. Because for some guests, dairy allergies aren't a preference issue. They're dangerous, The new cook hired by Zach didn't ask questions. He followed the manager's orders. Within half an hour, the woman had a serious reaction. An ambulance was called. She was hospitalized. I listened in complete silence. Dad told me he'd fired Zach immediately. No discussion. Just done. And now he wanted me to come back. Officially. To take over. Because things were spiraling and he couldn't stop it himself. I laughed. Not out of spite. Not to mock him. Just quietly, the kind of laugh that comes when you knew this was coming all along and no one listened. He tried to explain. Said he hoped giving Zach responsibility would change him. That things hadn't gone as expected. But none of that mattered anymore. I told him, if you want me back, fine. But only after you apologize. Publicly. To me and to the team. The same way you publicly ignored me. He went quiet, then said, "That's too much." Maybe it was, but I wasn't going to quietly return to being the reliable one. If I was going to save what was left of that restaurant, it had to be on my terms. With respect. With honesty. I ended the call and felt something settle inside me. Not anger, not vengeance, just clarity. I didn't want revenge. I wanted dignity. Later I found out the woman, the guest who got sick, hadn't even planned to sue. Not until the manager implied it was her fault. Claimed she should have specified her allergy, that she was overreacting. That's what made her go public. So it wasn't just about milk. It was about lies. And lies always cost more than soy milk ever will. It all started with a post on social media. Just a photo of an empty plate, a paper receipt, and a caption that made my stomach tighten. I almost died over dessert. Thanks for saving a few bucks. I didn't see it right away. A friend messaged me a screenshot. "Is this your restaurant?" At that point, it already had 8,000 likes. By the end of the day, it passed 12,000. People were reposting it, leaving angry comments, 1-star reviews. And the worst part? Old complaints started resurfacing. A rude server, a messed up order, cold food. All the little things no one talked about before, now they were reasons to never come back. That same day, my dad called again. I wasn't surprised. His voice was rushed, almost frantic. He said the guest was considering a lawsuit, that the press had reached out, that our lawyer was urging a fast settlement, and that he needed me. I listened. No anger, no sympathy, just silence. Because everything he was saying now, I'd told him weeks ago. He kept pushing. Why insist on public apologies? Isn't saving the business more important than pride? And that's when I knew. He still didn't get it. This wasn't about pride. It was about boundaries. He had publicly shoved me into the shadows, reduced me to the helper. And now, when things were falling apart, he wanted me to slip back in quietly. No questions asked, no conditions. But I wasn't that version of myself anymore. The next day, my mom sent me a link. The guest had done an interview. Title: "They nearly killed me to save money. The worst part? They lied." I read every word. She said she hadn't planned to go public, not until the manager told her it was her own fault, that she hadn't clearly specified her allergy. That was a lie. And it was the final straw. I realized then, if I didn't stand up for myself now, I could be pushed aside again anytime. Without warning, without consequence. I didn't want revenge, but I refused to be erased. I opened my laptop and sent my dad an email. No emotions, just terms. 4 points. I would return only after a formal public apology. It had to be delivered in front of the staff, just like the announcement that sidelined me. My position as general manager had to be made official in writing. I would have full operational control. No oversight, no team decisions, no Zach, no co-leads. 3 hours later, I got a reply. Short and direct. "Okay, tomorrow at 10 a.m. Everything will be ready." I read it several times. I didn't feel triumphant or vindicated, just calm. For the first time in weeks, something inside me settled. I hadn't won anything. I had just taken back what was already mine. At 9:50 a.m., I stood by the back door of the restaurant. Same stairs, same chipped paint on the doorframe. But I was no longer the same person who used to show up here with a coffee in one hand and a checklist in the other. This time, I had a signed contract in my pocket. My name printed next to the title General Manager. No more assumptions. No more maybe. Everything was official. My father waited by the bar. Serious. Still. My mom sat off to the side, eyes down. About 10 staff members were already inside. Hosts, servers, a barback, some of the kitchen crew. When I walked in, the room shifted. Conversations paused. Eyes turned. Some looked away. Others stared, cautiously. And then, someone started clapping. Just one. Then another joined. A beat later, the whole room followed. It wasn't loud or enthusiastic, but it was something. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I just nodded. I didn't need applause. I needed control. As promised, my father stood up and said aloud, "I want to apologize to Lauren. I made the wrong decision. From today, she is the general manager of this restaurant." He didn't meet my eyes, but I could tell it cost him something to say it publicly. That was enough. I didn't make a speech. I just walked through the dining area, scanning everything like I used to. My body remembered the rhythm. I headed into the kitchen. It was quieter than I remembered. Dust on my old prep tablet. Checklists lying unfinished. One printed ticket had notes scribbled across it, like someone had been trying to make sense of chaos and gave up halfway through. There was no anger in me, just clarity. I needed to put this place back in order. I started immediately, pulled out my laptop, logged into the POS system, and updated the menu. Deleted the 3 creative dishes Zach had added. Restored the ones he'd axed without cause. I emailed our old supplier. "Can we reinstate our previous agreement?" 20 minutes later. "For you?" "Of course." I sent a message to the staff chat. "Mandatory meeting at 6 p.m. today. Please be there." Some people were still hesitant. I understood that. They were tired of instability. They'd been promised things, let down, shuffled around. I didn't take it personally. I respected it. At the meeting, I kept it simple. We're not going to talk about why I left. We're not going to talk about why I came back. We are going to talk about where we go next. We have 1 week to fix this place. Or a month from now, someone else will be signing the lease. Nobody interrupted. One of the line cooks, someone who used to side-eye me constantly, finally said, "If you're leading, I'm staying." I didn't reply. I just nodded. After the meeting, I stayed in the dining room. Sat down at the same table by the window where I'd once drafted our first seasonal menu. I remembered arguing with Steve about the risotto salt ratio. I remembered hauling boxes myself at 11 p.m. when deliveries were late, testing sauces on my mom in our kitchen at midnight. I looked around. The walls were the same. The tables were the same. But it didn't feel the same. It felt like it belonged to me again. Zach showed up on the 4th day. No warning, no heads up. He just walked in like everything was normal, with that same confident expression he always wore, back when it used to make my stomach twist. But not this time. I was in the office signing off on invoices. He stepped into the doorway and stood there. I didn't get up, didn't offer a chair, just looked up at him. He spoke first. "I'm not here to fight. I want to explain." There was a time when I would have listened, when I would have tried to understand. But that time was long gone. Now there was no space left inside me for someone else's excuses. He sat down anyway, like it was still his right. He started with the usual. I didn't mean for things to go wrong. It all spiraled. I thought I could handle it. I stayed quiet. Then he added, "You get it, right?" I just wanted Dad to be proud of me. That almost made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was so expected. Once again, he tried to justify what he did through someone else's disappointment, through what he wasn't given, through how no one prepared him. I wasn't interested anymore. I looked at him and said calmly, "You want me to say I forgive you?" He nodded. "That's not my job." He fell silent. I stared at him, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger or resentment. Just a clean, even distance. Like he was a stranger now. Not an enemy. Just irrelevant. "There's no place for you here anymore. You made a mistake, and you didn't face the consequences. You weren't the one who walked away. You were removed. If you want a fresh start, do it somewhere else." He sat up straighter. I could tell he wanted to argue, but he didn't. Maybe for the first time, he realized that I didn't need his approval, and that he'd lost mine completely. He stood, slowly, looked around the room one last time, and left. I went back to the paperwork. A minute later, our hostess poked her head in. "Everything okay?" I smiled. "Yeah, now it is." That evening, for the first time, I didn't just feel like I had returned. I felt like I had taken my place. Not because someone else failed, not because someone allowed it, but because I was meant to be there. I wasn't the one fighting for recognition anymore. I was the value. It's been a month since I officially took over as general manager, And everything that once felt broken has slowly started to come back together. Not all at once, not magically, but steadily. Deliveries became reliable again. The staff started to sync. We won back old customers, and new ones came because of that viral post, the same one that almost buried us. People said they respected how we handled it, that real apologies were rare, that the difference was noticeable. And yes, there was a difference, because now everything that happened in this restaurant ran through me. Not symbolically, not under someone else's approval, but for real. We upgraded our ordering system, set new kitchen standards, launched internal training. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't just managing a business. I was shaping a workplace people wanted to be part of. Not just employees, a team. My dad and I didn't talk much, but when we did, it was professional, respectful, like people who understood something between them had cracked, but also knew what was worth salvaging. Things were easier with my mom. She told me she'd always worried but didn't know how to help. We started having lunch once a week. No restaurant talk, just mother and daughter. Zach never came back after our last conversation. I later heard he got a job at a small coffee shop in a quieter part of town. Not out of shame, not as punishment, just because that's his pace. And that's fine with me. Some nights I'd come home late, mind blank, tired but calm. I'd silence my phone, make a cup of tea, and sit on the balcony, watching the city lights dim, people heading home. And in those moments, I knew, this is where I'm supposed to be. I didn't need recognition. I didn't need to win. I just needed it to work. I wanted the restaurant to breathe. I wanted my team to feel safe. I wanted no one ever ending up in the hospital again over cost cutting. And no one ever again feeling invisible in a place they helped build. I no longer second-guessed myself. I didn't try to please. I didn't need to prove. I just did the work. And maybe that's what real leadership looks like.